If you think you just have bad rhythm, you're wrong. And if you tried counting out loud or using a metronome and it didn't fix things, that doesn't mean you're hopeless. The problem is not you, it's that you haven't gotten the information and guidance that you need. Most rhythm advice just skips the first steps, and that's why it feels like nothing works. Why should you listen to me? I've been teaching piano for nearly 50 years, and across hundreds, maybe even thousands of students, I make sure they all develop good rhythm. Not just the naturally talented ones, even those who came in saying, well, I just have bad rhythm. My students have played on NPRs from the top, and one is now a music theory teacher at Yale. What makes the difference? Well, in my mind and in my teaching, I break learning rhythm down into clear, manageable steps, and I stay with each step until the student masters it before we go on. Now, some teachers might not break it down, they may not know how, or they might give up when a student is struggling. And if you don't even have a teacher, well, you probably never knew there were steps in the first place. So by the end of the video, you will understand why you've struggled with rhythm, what steps were skipped in your learning, and how to fix them. That's the most important. You'll walk away with a clear roadmap of what to do, and plus a free tool that will help you hear how rhythms are supposed to sound so that taking them off the page becomes a lot easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If any of that feels or sounds familiar, you have a lot of company. And a heartbreaking part about it is when someone's playing like that, they are really trying to play rhythmically. You don't have the underpinning that you need. And counting, as I was trying to show with that example, counting out loud does not fix it. In fact, it often makes things worse. So if you don't really know what a steady beat feels like in your body, it's almost impossible to do all these complicated maneuvers that we need to do at the piano with the hands and arms. A lot of times rhythm is presented with diagrams like the one you see on the screen, where there's a lot of math going on. This is half of that, this is 2 times of that, you take half of that one and add a third of that one. It's all true. It is something you need to know at some point, but it will not help you stop playing the way that I demonstrated. Fixing that problem is a whole nother ball of wax. We'll talk more about counting later in the video and how to actually use it. So what should you do instead besides counting? Well, the important thing is to get a feeling in your body of what is a steady pulse. So what the hell does that mean exactly? What it means, pulse, at least when musicians talk about it, it means that it's sounds that are regularly spaced. So that would be like your heart rate is usually pretty regularly spaced. If it's not, you generally would be going to the doctor. The ticking of a clock is pretty regularly spaced. Those are both examples of pulse. If you're just walking steadily along, that's a steady pulse. So what's the best way to get a strong feeling of that? You want to be moving your torso, your feet, your legs, and most particularly, you want to be moving your head. Apparently, it's in the vestibular system, what's inside our ear, when that is being moved back and forth, that's what helps people internalize a sense of steady beat. That's some recent and interesting research that I heard about from Dr. Molly Gebrian. She is a fount of information. So before you're going to be able to play steady, you have to be able to feel that steadiness in the body. And you can develop that by doing just exactly what I'm doing, where I'm swaying here. And you can choose what it is you're going to sway to. I would recommend picking something that's at a tempo that feels comfortable to you. Maybe it's a song you really like. You could also put on music and try to walk to it and feel the steady, make your walking match with the speed of the music. Another possibility is to play one hand while you're maybe walking, kind of walking a steady beat like this. So probably starting with the walking to a recording of somebody playing that, and then try playing along with the recording maybe as you sway. When I do this in lessons, I have the students sway while I play their piece. And it's not that easy, and I'll sway with them because we have those mirror neurons, and so they can kind of copy what I'm doing as I'm playing their music. So a lot of people are tapping their foot. And apparently the same research about the vestibular system shows that tapping your foot is not as helpful. I've even used the idea of rocking to help myself when I'm playing something where the rhythm was quite difficult to feel. Check out this, it's just a short clip from a piece called The Valley of Bells by Ravel. And what was hard about this particular piece is it's very, very slow. And when pulses are slow, it's hard not to speed up. And so I practice it with the metronome, but also with swaying my body to the beat and the metronome. And it took me quite a while actually to get good at that. But once I had it, it was very easy to play the piece steadily. So getting good at rhythm is not like just one thing. It's a whole bunch of stuff that has to build together. So first you have to have that foundation of the steady beat. Once you've got that, the next step that I would have you do, and the way that most method books proceed, is they have you play just quarter notes. So you're playing just one note per pulse. So now you've got yourself feeling the steady beat, and now you're going to add in playing a note for each beat, like whatever notes you're playing. It could be a song in your book, but you want to have only quarter notes. Once you can master that, now you can try adding in the longer note values, like where one note lasts for 2 beats, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Almost everyone shorts those long notes. Not just the people who have trouble with pulse. Pretty much everybody is shorting those. And the longer they are, the more people short them. So it's really important that as you're playing anything, really, that you're very much in touch with what is the pulse and where do my notes line up with that steady pulse that that feeling that you put into your body. Once you're good at playing one note per pulse, and then playing notes that last more than one pulse, now you can start introducing notes where we're putting several notes inside one pulse. And we in fancy teacher talk, that's subdivisions of the beat. And there's a whole boatload of those out there, many different kinds of ways that people have chosen to subdivide the beat. What's important is that you are able to look at the score and then hear inside your head, how is that pattern of dots and stems and lines, what is that supposed to sound like? You can't be looking at the score going, let's see, that's half of that, and that's a quarter of that, so that means this goes here. That does not tell you how it sounds. If you're a little kid and you're going to learn language, well, first you hear it a lot. Babies hear language for quite a long time before they start speaking. So they hear it and then they imitate it. And it's the same thing we want to do with rhythm. We want to be hearing those rhythmic chunks, or I think of them like words, hear the rhythm words, and then we can speak them. And then once you have that in your mind, how it's supposed to sound, yeah, it's fine to go and figure out within one measure how do these different note values add up to the total value in the measure. So I like to teach those subdivisions by using words, and I'm not the only person that does this. So there's a lot of, in fact, there's a whole method for teaching called the Kodai method that is completely based on words. It doesn't really matter what words you use, just be consistent. The words that I've grown to like are words I learned from a Suzuki teacher book by Mitsuko Yurko, and they're all food. And so I was working with a student when she came to me. She said, oh, I have really bad rhythm. She was kind of discouraged about it. And now, by the way, we are playing Mozart duets for 4 hands at the piano because she can keep a steady beat. We can stay together. It's fantastic. But anyway, I explained to her about these words, and she said, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be learning rhythm this way. It's so much easier the way you're teaching me. I said, well, how is that? She said, well, with using groceries, it's so much easier. So that's the free download I have for you below the video is in the honor of this student. I called it the Rhythm Grocery List. And I have a word for each of the rhythmic subdivisions. And of course, you have to pronounce the word how it would go with the rhythm, like pineapple, 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 and then jello, 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 and then huckleberry, huckleberry, huckleberry. And those are the most common subdivisions. And by the way, an excellent word for 5 notes per beat is hippopotamus. It took me a long time to think of that one, hippopotamus. Where the rhythm words are very helpful is when you have to switch between different subdivisions of the quarter note. And a good example of that is the piece everyone loves to play. It's the Clair de Lune by Debussy. And it starts out with groups of 3 notes, and then in the third measure, it switches to having 2 notes per beat. So if I use my words, it's pineapple, 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 jello, jello, pineapple, 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 etc. So people don't usually play that piece like that. It's more like... And then you kind of wait for a random amount of time, and when they feel like it, they play this one. Then they wait for a while. That's not my taste. That's not how I like to play it. To each their own. But you might be wondering right now, well, what about counting? Everybody says to count. Where does all this stuff go with counting? Well, here's the problem. If you're counting without a pulse, it doesn't actually fix rhythm problems. When you're counting, what are you counting? Well, you're counting how many beats there are per measure, and measures are those, the lines, the vertical lines. And the point of the line is to tell you, okay, these notes all go together, and they're one chunk, and we call that a measure. And so you're counting. Well, here's my first note, here's my second note, my third note. You're keeping track of where you are in the measure, because each way of grouping notes, like it usually has a certain pattern or swing of accentuation. That's why you're counting, is so you know where you are in this pattern of strong and weak beats. But counting is much more difficult than just feeling the pulse, especially if you're trying to play at the same time as you're counting. It's a skill you have to build up to. It's not something that will help you get your rhythm right in the first place. So if you have a piece that's hard for you to play the rhythm, first feel the pulse. Maybe try swaying along to somebody else playing the music. And when you get good at that, then you could try counting. Just try counting a measure or two as you play. Get that measure down, then you can try the next one. And then get that one down, now do a couple of them. But don't play and count in a way that does not go with the pulse. That is doing nothing. Absolutely nothing for you. So if counting feels shaky or not doable, the next thing people usually try is using a metronome. And yes, it's useful, but not for learning rhythm in the first place. Let's talk about what the metronome is actually good for and why it can't replace that feeling of pulse that you need to have inside yourself. I remember a long, long time ago, I had a beginning adult student, and he came into his lesson, and he sat down, he's very dramatic. He said, "I wish metronomes were cheaper." I'm like, this is well before apps, before the internet. I was like, huh? He goes, because I'd like to throw them against the wall. And that's mostly how people feel about the metronome. If they try to use it before they really have a steady sense of pulse. It's very frustrating. Like you're playing along and you have no idea what that thing over there is doing. And I have had lots of students who basically have become very skillful at playing while ignoring the metronome. So the metronome's doing nothing. They're just completely tuning it out. So how do you fix that? Well, one thing you can do is when you're playing with the metronome, again, as always, take a smaller chunk and then listen and hear. Am I ahead of the metronome or am I behind the metronome? Or, am I with it at all or am I completely off? Just like you're a scientist, you're experimenting, you're trying to pay attention. Am I ahead? Am I behind? And it actually gets better results than like frantically trying to catch up with it. As soon as you feel that you're off from playing, you're not with it, then you should stop. Don't try to catch it, because now you're practicing rushing. You're now practicing playing steady. Maybe you can figure out why you're off or where it was that you got off, and then zone in on those measures and try to see if you can get just those couple beats, wherever it was that you got off from the metronome. Try to get those two to line up and then stick it back into the entire passage. So I kind of already said this, but the metronome is not good for learning a rhythm. First, you have to know how the rhythm's supposed to sound. You have to be able to hear the rhythm, maybe as you're providing the pulse, like my mazurka example there, right? See, I can already feel this with the pulse. Now I could put the metronome on and see if I can play it with the metronome. Not that we generally play mazurkas in a metronomic way, but I'm just using it because I started the video with that example. So that's another thing. Playing too much with a metronome can produce a very mechanical sound. Because a lot of times people will be imitating kind of what they hear. And when you hear click, 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 then people start playing. So it's very, very square and not expressive. I did a short video about that recently, so I'll link that up here, about not playing all the beats equally and what that can do to enliven your music. So what is the metronome good for? One thing it's very good for, it's like a speedometer. Most of the time I've found when students come, and especially when they're beginners, they usually have one speed, like one, that they're comfortable playing at. And some students want to go really slow, and some want to go really fast, and some are kind of in the middle. So when you're first trying to play with the metronome, you want to figure out like what speed is easy for me to play at. And it's not all that easy sometimes to figure out what metronome speed you should be playing at. Like, you can't stay with it, but you don't know if you need to go slower or faster. So try experimenting, moving it a little slower, see if you can stay with it. A little slower, can you stay with it? To find that kind of sweet spot that feels relatively comfortable for you to play with the metronome. Well, once you've got that speed that's like your home base, then you can try gradually playing faster, or you can try gradually playing slower and kind of broaden your ability to play at a variety of tempos. The other thing it's very good for is if you're trying to get something to go faster, or you can pick a slower speed and play a part at the slower speed, and then take the metronome up a few points, 3, 4, 5 points. Usually when people play slow, like I say to play slow and then gradually speed up, it's like, I say, let's speed it up a little. I mean, that's like 30, 40 metronome points, that increase. They increase the speed way too fast. So the metronome's good for slowing that rate of increase down. So that you're constantly staying in touch with the beat, and you are staying in control of your playing. And there's even a fantastic kind of protocol for gradually learning sections of your music and gradually speeding up that Dr. Gebrian taught me. It's called interleaved clicking up. And I'll link that playlist she has about that. It's a super powerful technique. I really recommend it. And it's basically using this clicking up, using the metronome to speed up. Another thing the metronome is good for is if you mostly have a steady beat, but there's some spot where you lose it a little bit, you can use the metronome to help you correct that spot, that one little spot. So this is more like troubleshooting as opposed to fixing that you can't play any beats steady. Or if you're playing, this usually happens with Mozart and Beethoven, kind of classical style music. Anything with a lot of scales, people tend to rush in scales. So if you find that's happening where you're rushing in scales, the metronome is very good to make sure you don't go too fast. Particularly if you're preparing to play a piece with someone else or a group of other people, it's very good to try playing it with the metronome to make sure that you're not speeding up or slowing down without realizing it. Because then when you go to play with everybody else, they're going to be like, whoa, what are you doing? Like they can't stay with you because everyone's trying to sync to a steady beat, but you've learned in a beat that is not steady, so you can't get it together with the other people in your group. Sometimes people come and they're trying to play a passage and the beat is not steady. There's like pauses, but the problem is not that the person doesn't know what a steady beat is. The problem is that their hands aren't organized in a way where they're ready to play a steady beat in a specific spot in a piece. So that happened this week. I was working with someone on this Bach prelude, and when he first came, he said he did not have a good sense of rhythm. He was right, by the way, he did not. And he worked very hard. I gave him a technique that's another good one to try for learning a steady beat, which is to play along with an app where it plays the music that you're supposed to be playing along with a steady click, like a pulse. And the reason that's good is sometimes if you don't have a very good sense of pulse, it's very hard to know exactly which notes that you're trying to play line up with the beats. Like you can't kind of hear how the whole music goes. And if you just have this click, 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 in your ear hear how your notes go with the click, it's very hard to get the two to get together. But if you have somebody else playing along steadily, it's pretty easy to join up with them. And I'll just play with that person. And I do that a lot in lessons. I have 2 pianos where I just play and we play together and they try to stay with me. But these apps can do it at home, or you can do it if you don't have a teacher or somebody else to play your piece with you. Piano Marvel is a good one. And also the app that's also very good for that is Sight Reading Factory. You just play along with it and it's playing the notes that you're supposed to play that go with the pulse. So I had this person work on that, but I had him start with playing only quarter notes with Sight Reading Factory. He was a lot better after 1 week. It was pretty fantastic. Anyway, so I gave him this piece to work on. It's a Bach piece because it doesn't have a lot of different note values, but it has mostly eighth notes in it. So it's pretty much going steady, like dot, 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 dot. It's not changing, and that's what makes rhythms easier. So this is measure 3. And then there was kind of like a pause. Kind of like that. And especially the problem between measure 3 and 4. That's this one. So the problem there was that the left hand was not getting ready soon enough. That's why there was a pause there. It was not that he didn't know that he was supposed to sound like. So I'll show again what was going on. So the cure is you got to get off that left hand note sooner. So now my left hand is ready. I'm moving it to the new location on beat 3. Move. That's an example of a coordination issue that's causing you to pause. And a lot of the time those issues involve leaps. The person is not moving soon enough. They're not on the notes that come next in a way that they can play them in time. So when you're having rhythmic troubles in a specific spot, but generally you're okay playing a steady beat, if you can find a way to think about what your arms are doing rather than your fingers, it's much easier to keep it in with the beat. And you can still be using the swaying I was talking about as well. And the reason is that the fingers want to go fast, but the arms and the body are much more skilled at going slowly. Like if you went to hear a very rhythmical, enjoyable music concert, let's say you're an old fogey like me and you go to a rock concert, you're not sitting there, going like this, wow, with your finger, like, whoa, this is great. It's not your fingers, right? You're going to be, maybe you're, dancing like this, old fogey rock style dancing, or maybe you're moving your feet, your head. You're not going like this. If you just think about it as a listener, right? That's not where you're feeling it. So as a player, you want to feel it in your arms, your torso also. That will help you keep much more steadily with the beat. It will also help your interpretation. When you're speeding up and slowing down things and using something we call rubato, if you're using the body to time it, it will be much more natural. If rhythm has always felt like something that everybody else has, now you know why. You're not bad at rhythm, you were just not given the steps that you needed in the right order. If your teacher's been telling you to count or use a metronome, they are right. Those tools are valuable. But first, you got to get that steady beat and feel it inside your body. Don't forget to download my free guide to help tricky rhythms stick in your inner ear. The link is in the description. And if you want more than rhythm, if you want my full framework for technique, practice, expression, and an opportunity to hang out with a bunch of other people who are crazy about piano, that's all inside my Piano with Rebecca B community. And you'll find that link in the description as well. Watch this video next if you want to hear my take on leaps.